Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Summerville, South Carolina, where we bring you the latest news and incredible guests here in Summerville. As always, I'm Chris Mikowski, the town's public information officer and the host of Town Talk. Today, I'm extremely excited for what we have in store for you all. We have our new town administrator, Scott Slatton, with us, and Scott started officially on September 2nd, so he's still brand new. And so the fact that he's willing to come onto the podcast so quickly, I'm very appreciative of, and I'm really excited for you guys to get to learn a little bit more about Scott. But just a quick background, he'll give you more in the episode. Scott is a native of northern Greenville County, and he brings a very diverse background to the town, with degrees from both Winthrop University and George Mason University. His career spans from Capitol Hill and town management in both the Carolinas and nearly 16 years with the Municipal Association of South Carolina, where he trained and supported cities and towns throughout the whole state. Some other fun facts about Scott before we dig into the episode. Scott is an Eagle Scout and also a former volunteer firefighter, where he was inducted into the Woodruff Fire Department Hall of Fame in 2012. He's also married to Dr. Angie Slatton for 29 years, and they have 2 adult children. I'm extremely excited for you guys to take the opportunity to get to understand and learn about Scott. And it's also an opportunity for me to learn about Scott as well. And I hope you guys take a lot from this episode. And that said, let's get to it. Well, welcome to the new setup, by the way. I'm sure you guys are seeing the new setup. It's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
And, you know, we're also super excited because the new setup also requires us to have a brand new guest to the town of Summerville.
That's right.
Our new town administrator, Scott Slatton. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Chris. It's great to see you, and I appreciate being here for the inaugural unveiling of the sign.
Isn't it amazing?
Right? It's awesome.
The light up sign. We have a monitor here, so if any of our guests want to share any guest content or anything that they want to share to the community, that's a good way of doing it now. So we're just trying to make it a little bit more.
Just make it big enough on the screen that you can see it.
Right.
When you're, when it's recording on the camera. Right.
So,
yeah. Don't put little print or things you can't actually see when you're watching the video.
I know they're going to be like, no.
And will it broadcast? So when I'm watching it online, it'll be straight, right? Because like sometimes the camera will flip it backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, it'll be straight, but I think basically what they would do is just plug in their laptop or whatever and control it directly from their laptop.
Sorry for all the tech talk here, but I'm kind of a nerd as well when it comes to presentations and such.
You were on a podcast with the Municipal Association, but we'll get into that a little bit.
Sure.
But Scott, could you just give our community a little background on yourself and what brought you here to the town of Summerville?
Sure. I'm a native of the upstate. I've been in municipal government work for the better part of 20 plus years. I graduated from Winthrop University in the mid-90s. Got my graduate degree at George Mason University in public administration. And then my wife and I moved back to South Carolina, and I couldn't find a job in local government. I was even taking typing tests for state agency admin positions and just couldn't get hired.
Yeah.
And so worked for a time pushed boxes in a warehouse, and then that company asked me to come on as their first ever HR manager and IT manager, and so I did that. And then got hired into the little town of Baden, North Carolina, which is in central North Carolina, about 45 minutes northeast of Charlotte, where I was their town manager. Did that for a few years, and then moved to Woodruff, South Carolina, where I was the city manager, and then went to work for the Municipal Association of South Carolina, where I spent nearly 16 years.
Oh, wow.
There in a variety of different roles. And then, of course, When I left the association, I knew that Summerville had an opening for their administrator position, and I inquired about it. And with the council election that took place last year and some of the changes that are taking place here, it looked like a great opportunity to come and bring my skill set, hopefully to help this council and the staff continue to move Summerville forward in the positive direction that it seems to be heading. And it's just an exciting, growing place. I've never worked or lived in this part of the state. I've always lived or worked either essentially from the Midlands north, Rock Hill,
so
the
not
upstate.
really the Low Country.
No, I've never. I've worked in the Low Country in terms of during my work with the Municipal Association, but never on a full-time basis. So I'm really excited about it and looking forward to continuing forward.
Yeah, your background is very impressive, and honestly, it's really cool to see that you had all that experience in the other municipalities, but then also went to the Municipal Association, and got to work with basically almost every municipality in the state.
Yeah, so for people who may not know what the Municipal Association is, it's essentially the trade association for cities and towns across the state. It provides training, technical assistance, technical assistance. It provides some business services, insurance pools, a variety of different services. And so I started there as what's called a field services manager, where I traveled around the northern half of the state and provided training and technical assistance to 116 of the state's 271 cities and towns at that time.
Wow.
And then I transitioned from that role into a lobbying role for the association. And so I lobbied the General Assembly every day when it's in session, and they did a variety of other programming tasks when the General Assembly is not in session. So it was a great experience. It's a great organization, and I know that it's valuable to particularly small towns and cities across the state, but certainly jurisdictions like Summerville and larger cities and towns benefit from the association as well. So great experience, and so I'm hoping to bring some of those skills to bear that I brought there.
Yeah, I know from a staff perspective, there's a lot of excitement for your experience and what you're bringing to us from a staff level. I think there's a lot that's people are going to be excited about, right? And so when it came to the Municipal Association, you worked with all those municipalities. How difficult was that to go back and forth and work with so many different personalities and different opinions throughout the whole state?
Yeah. Well, I think probably one of the best things is the work that I was doing with them was because they asked for it, the help that we provided.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything else. You have different priorities in different cities and towns across the state. Some need a higher level of help versus others that have a professional staff, like the town of Summerville. The association can provide some value to larger jurisdictions like Summerville in different ways than it would, say, for a town like Lincolnville, our neighbor here, or Ridgeville, right up the road here in Dorchester County. Those jurisdictions probably get I don't want to say a higher level of service, but they get a more frequent service from the association because they don't have the staff and don't have the resources that the association can bring to bear for them. So, but managing the different personalities, it's great. It's different cultures in different jurisdictions all over the state. So I'm looking forward to learning the Low Country culture, and as I understand, there's even a Summerville culture beyond the Low Country.
There is. Summerville,
I'm excited about it.
Yes, Summerville is, and we talk about this all the time. It's family oriented, and the community here is extremely special, and they're extremely passionate about what they care about, but also this community, from the nature to the roads, you name it. There's a lot of passion here, and there's something important about that.
Listen, having engaged residents is an advantage for a community rather than a disadvantage. Some people might say, "Oh, well, you got too many cooks in the kitchen." No, you want participation. You want to know what people are thinking, and I know that our council has its ear to the ground. Each council member each council member and the mayor, they're listening to their constituents. They're talking to them every day. They're relaying those conversations to me and to the rest of the staff. And so we're jumping in and helping to solve issues where we can, and providing support to our residents as much as we possibly can. So, and I'm really eager to learn more. I still haven't even been to met all of the staff across the town. I'm working on that. I'm 2 weeks in now, and I've learned a lot already, and still have a lot yet to go.
Yeah, no, and you're doing. I mean, from just your 2 weeks, you're going and meeting with all the staff.
Yep.
It's very encouraging to see leadership, especially from a town administrator, to really just sit down with staff and have these conversations about needs, but also learn about our community as well.
Well, I think it's important to be present and be available to the staff, to residents, and so you will see me out and about. You'll see me on the street. You'll see me in your department. You'll see me just popping in to say hello, if nothing else, so that if there's anything that you need from me as a staff or a resident, then you'll know how to get a hold of me, and you'll know my face and say, hey, I need to talk to that guy.
Yeah.
So hopefully people will take advantage of that.
I think they will. And additionally, you do have background as a firefighter. Am I correct on that?
I was a firefighter for 13 years.
Wow.
So in Baden, which is a really tiny town, it's a little village in North Carolina. They always drafted the town manager into the fire department in some way or another. If he or she could not actually go respond to calls, then they had them help in some other way. But that's where I got started. Was there for about 3 years and kind of got my feet wet in the fire service. And then when I went to Woodruff, I was a volunteer as well. Really, but in both cases out of necessity in some way, because when you have a largely volunteer dependent fire department, every able-bodied person who's in town, if they can help, they want the help. They need to. So there were a lot of occasions where I would leave City Hall when I was in Woodruff, especially, and with a tie on, and go running up the street to the fire, because it was next door at that time initially, and then and jump on the truck and go help. But when we moved to the Columbia area, they have volunteers there, but they really didn't need somebody, especially at my age by that point. So I've been out of the fire service for a good long time now, but I still have a great appreciation for it. And I still yearn to get into an engine and hit the queue and go screaming down the street. So
what was that experience like, though, for you to be a firefighter for those years? What did you learn that really helped you, I guess, propel your career?
Well, I tell you, it provides you with a lot of perspective and empathy for people who are having a bad day, because you're not responding as a first responder, as police, fire, EMS, unless somebody's having a bad day. And so it teaches you to empathize with the folks that you're trying to help. It gives you an appreciation for the work that the men and women in those first response agencies do every day, the dedication that they have. And it's infectious, and it helps with decision making, of course. Physically, it's good for you. And all those things translate into better management of most any situation that you can come upon. It's not for everybody. In fact, there were occasions whenever I was lobbying in the General Assembly, I was able to call on that experience when we were dealing with issues related to first response legislation. So I miss it, but like I said, I'm too old to be doing that stuff anymore. So
no, come on. But I will say, I think it was like later last year, we did a podcast episode. It was a special, so it was more of a video special. But I dressed in our firefighter gear and went with Chief Melcher. And we basically went into their training facility and basically had our mics on as much as they could hold, because it was
hot.
It was hot,
and visibility is usually really bad anyway. So
I will tell you what, an incredible experience to go in there and just feel the anxiety of it, the pressure of it. Even though it's a training facility, and it was incredible. Just you couldn't see anything. You could barely breathing was hard.
Yes,
and yet our men and women have to carry out people like me, my size.
Right.
I'm a big guy, and if they have to carry me out, like that's incredible.
Chris, that actually reminds me of a story, and I tell stories, so I'll just tell you.
That's what podcast is for. We're here for the stories.
I'll come up with an anecdote all the time. One time when I was in Baden, it was we had a house fire call, and I ran out of town hall, went over to the fire station, and it was me and a guy named Ray Smith and a kid named Brandon Burleson. Brandon Burleson was, I don't know, he was probably 22 at the time. I was probably 35 or so. I don't know how old it was. But anyway, Brandon was about 6'4", and he dressed out probably around 3'10" or so. And Ray was driving the truck, and as we're driving up there, I was like, Brandon, I'm just going to tell you, if you fall out, because Brandon and I were the only two that were going to go into the fire, right? I said, if you fall out, I'm going to do my best to try and get you out, but it ain't going to be easy. So, but now I will say, of course he didn't fall out, but having a big kid like that help behind you and help pushing you around the room, it was good. It worked out. So,
there's advantages of being a big guy.
But listen, and I don't want this to be a fire dominated talk, but if you're claustrophobic, if you get uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations, physical situations, even mental situations, that business is not for you.
Agreed.
And it teaches you to overcome some of those anxieties and manage your adrenaline, manage your fear. But it's not for everybody. So
I completely agree, and definitely shout out to our public safety officials. Again, I do it all the time, but for everything they do, especially last night at our council meeting, hearing the story about how they saved the child about to go into the pool. I mean, the stories like that, it's incredible to hear.
Yeah, it's fulfilling work.
For sure. Now, before we get into some deeper questions about our community, I do have one question.
Sure.
Because I helped you write your bio and get everything out when you were coming in. And one thing I noticed is that you are a native of the Dark Corner.
Yes.
Explain that to me, because we're low country folk here. So explain the Dark Corner.
So the Dark Corner is the northeast corner of Greenville County, right up against the state line in the mountains. It's probably, I would say, it's bordered on the west by a community called Slater Marietta. It's bordered on the east by the town of Landrum, and roughly by the city of Greer on the south. And then, of course, the northern border are the mountains it's Glassy Mountain, Hogback Mountain, Callahan Mountain, those areas. It's called the Dark Corner in part because particularly during the Prohibition days, there was a lot of moonshining that took place there, and still is moonshining that takes place there. In fact, there's a show called Moonshiners.
Moonshiners,
right? Anyway, I think somebody can correct me, but I think there's even been an episode about some moonshiners in the Dark Corner.
I'm about to Google that after this.
I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But anyway, particularly during the Prohibition era, when there was so much moonshining, there was really not a whole lot of law enforcement there.
Yeah.
And so that part of the state, that part of the county was largely, it's very rural. Was very rural. It's not anymore. It's very rural, very remote. Lots of very independent families that still do live in that area. So it got that name as the Dark Corner. Plumleys, Lindsays, Howards, Epleys, Slattons to an extent, all native families of that part of the state. They're all, I think, Scots-Irish that originally settled there from other parts of the world and remained very fiercely independent for a long, long time, even through the 80s when I was growing up there.
Yeah.
But then BMW comes along and really provides a huge injection of newcomers and money into that part of the state, and of course the effects are felt, all the way down here, particularly when you see BMWs being exported through the port. So it's changed a lot. There's a lot more growth that's taking place in that part of the state. And then in the 90s, a developer, might have been the early 2000s, I can't remember, a developer named Jim Anthony developed what was the original Cliffs of Glassy housing development, which is high-end, multi-million-dollar homes that he put on the top of Glassy Mountain. Glassy Mountain is has a huge granite cliff that's probably, I don't know, 100 feet tall and 200 feet wide, 300 feet wide.
Wow.
It's you can see it for miles when you're approaching it. But that was all privately owned property. And then Mr. Anthony bought that from the family that owned it. And I wish it had become had been made into a state park. It's a beautiful place. The elevation's about 3,100 feet. When you go to the top, you can see for miles and miles. You can see downtown Greenville from there, which is
that's amazing.
25 miles away or something. I can't remember exactly how long. But anyway, as natives growing up there, we would go up there and camp and just enjoy that property. But you can't get up there unless you own a multi-million-dollar home anymore. There's a golf course on top of it now. It's really kind of
built up over the time.
Really, to me, it's kind of sad. But the people who can afford to live there, they love it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, when it came to being up in that area, you've got to be a mountain person, a hiking person, right?
Yes.
I figured. I love going up there, and especially Greenville in that area, going to the mountains and exploring the waterfalls, because we don't really have that here. We have the beach, which is awesome too. But being able to go into the mountains, I've always loved that.
Yeah,
I've always loved that.
Absolutely.
Now, I do want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the role of a town administrator and kind of what you're looking to do within this role as you assist our council and lead our staff.
So a town administrator, a town manager he or she is the chief executive officer of the city or town, depending on the form of government. There's 3 forms of municipal government in South Carolina, but those CEOs, if there's an administrator or a manager, they have largely the same roles in most cases.
That's a good way to explain it. It's like a CEO.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm responsible to the council for the execution of its policies. So city council devises policies, goals that it wants to see for the town. It's my responsibility to then ensure that those policies are executed through the staff. So we as staff take our instructions, if you will, from city council, and then we make what they want to happen. We do that obviously within the constraints of state law, within the constraints of the council's ordinances that they passed. And so it's my responsibility to ensure that those things get done in coordination with all of the fantastic staff that we have here with the town of Summerville. And so the council, through ordinance, has empowered the administrator to do certain things with regard to personnel, purchasing, finance responsibilities, those kinds of things. And so I just take all those duties and make sure that we get the job done on behalf of the council, who's doing this, of course, on behalf of all the residents.
Absolutely. And so that only explains why you're taking the time and effort to really reach out to our staff and have those person-to-person meetings, not just emails, but you're going and meeting them face-to-face and having these conversations and getting to know staff. There's something really special about that.
Well, I mean, if a part of leadership is making sure that people know who you are to begin with.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I will tell you that all of my experience as a city manager and a town manager, I've done. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. As an example, I've always driven pieces of equipment. I've run garbage routes. I've run the track hoe. I've run the skid steer. I've picked up garbage. I've pulled weeds. When I first got hired in the city of Woodruff many years ago, the city was broke when I got there. I mean, they literally had no money. And the landscaping downtown, they'd done a streetscape and had these great curb cuts and bump outs and flower beds and things, but they were completely overgrown because they just didn't have the staff to come in and take care of these things. And so I had a little bit of time one afternoon, and so I went upstairs and I started pulling weeds out of the planters on Main Street, and a resident stopped and he says, "Hey, aren't you the city manager?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Why in the world are we paying you to pull weeds? I said, because it needs to be done, and there ain't nobody else to do it. So that's my view. We're here to get a job done. It doesn't matter who you are, how high, where you are in the hierarchy in terms of the organizational chart. Our job is to get the job done, and so if that means that I need to come, I just had a meeting with Judge Jameson and said, look, if you need me to come and help file paperwork one day, and I've got the time, or whatever task you need, I'm not above it. I'll come do it. So that's my view. That's the way I approach my job. It's about getting the job done. I don't care who gets the credit, and there is no job that somebody shouldn't be willing to do in order to get to the end goal, if you will.
Absolutely.
So that's my view.
And I will say, in my past 2 years, I've really gotten to know the community, obviously, as a public information officer, but through the podcast and different avenues that we do. And one thing they will respect is someone who gets their hands dirty. And I know a lot of our community members who are listening and watching are really going to respect that answer. So, and as a staff member, I appreciate that. And I know our other staff members appreciate that, because that just shows that it's a real sign of leadership, and it's a real sign of team and collaboration as a whole. So that's awesome. So when it comes to working with council, basically, I think we have a great leadership here from a council perspective. I think from staff level and community level, we are very fortunate to have the people that we have voted in leading our community. But you have experience working with different councils and everything like that. What are some challenges and, I guess, learning lessons that you've learned from the past that you're excited and think kind of set you up for this role with the town of Summerville?
Well, I mean, everybody has competing goals. They have competing priorities. And so I think it's important that everybody be heard about their priorities and be given the proper consideration for their priorities as a council, instead of being just immediately shut down and say, no, we're not going to do that, or just ignoring it or something like that. Communication is extremely important. Now, ultimately, the council may decide not to go in a particular direction because that one council member wants to go. But I think it's important that and I think this council does this, from what I've gathered so far in my conversations with them individually to this point, this council respects the opinions of each member and is willing to hear them out and then deliberate in a civil manner, in a respectful way, and then render a decision. And whether or not that decision goes that council member's way or not, I think they can respect the process in how the entire body got to that point, got to that decision. So that staying within your lane, everybody, problems occur. So the three forms of municipal government across the state, sometimes cities or towns will say, well, we need to change our form of government because this one isn't working. I've always said that's not the form of government that's the problem. The three forms of government are kind of like a Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, right? They're all cars. They all basically do the same thing. It's just whichever one you prefer, which one you like best.
That makes sense,
right?
Yeah.
But it's just this. It's the same way in municipal government. They all three work just fine. It's just the people who inhabit those forms of government that determine whether or not they work, right? Yeah. So if people don't stay within their lanes of responsibility, then that's when problems occur. And I don't think that's going to happen here. I haven't seen any evidence of that since this council's been elected, especially. And I've not heard. I've heard nothing but from the members that I've interviewed with and spoken to and met with since I've been here. They all respect that, and they appreciate the staff. They appreciate and respect the professionalism of our staff, and understand that they understand their role as the policy makers. And then once they set that policy, they understand it's up to the staff to execute that policy. And if staff doesn't get that done, then council can they need to get involved quite naturally. They're responsible. They're the oversight body, right? So I'm glad to hear that. It's very encouraging to say, okay, this is where we want to go. Help us get there, and then we'll get out of your way so that you can lead us in that direction. So that's very healthy, and it works well. Yeah,
and just so our community can, for the folks who might not know, can you explain the three different levels of government?
Yeah. So the town of Summerville operates under what's called the council form of government, whereby all the council as a body is responsible under state law to set policy and then to ensure that it's executed. And in Summerville's case and a number of other council forms across the state, they hire a professional administrator to come in and oversee those duties. The other two are the mayor council form of government, which means which some people refer to as the strong mayor form of government. Charleston, North Charleston employ that. That's where the mayor under state law is the chief executive officer, and he or she is responsible for executing the policies of the council. The council in the mayor council form of government continues to set policy, but it's the mayor who is responsible for executing that policy. Okay. The third form, and it's used in the fewest number of cities, but it's used in most all of the largest cities across the state, is called the council manager form of government. Again, the council sets the policy, but the council hires a professional administrator, a city manager. And that city or town manager is provided authority to execute the council's policies under state law. Okay. So that those responsibilities, for instance, hiring, disciplining, firing employees, preparing the budget, those are things that are given to the city manager in state law. The council cannot take that authority away from him or her. Whereas here in the council form, here in Summerville, the town council has given the administrator through ordinance, through its policy, very similar responsibilities to a city manager that are found in state law. But the difference being, whereas in the council manager form, state law says that the manager has these authorities and can't be taken away. In the council form, if the council wanted to, here in Summerville, it could change its ordinance and take away the authorities that it is given to the town administrator and give it to somebody else.
That makes sense.
So that's the difference. Structurally and operationally, they're essentially the same. It's just who has the authority under what state law or local ordinance to execute the policies.
And that makes sense. And I think the point you brought up is it is kind of like a brand, right? As long as you work together, I mean, they kind of all mean the same thing at the end. And they all work well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think when it comes to the way that the town is ran, I really do believe we have a group of council members that are willing to listen to each other and have great conversations. And even if they're tough, but they're willing to listen and be a team. I think there's something very important about that. Being willing to listen is the key phrase.
Well, listen, all of the council members have told me, look, we brought you here for a reason, and we understand that we're going to set the policy, but we're going to stay out of your way. And that's important. We trust you, and we trust the staff, and so that's empowering, and it inspires confidence, and it makes me feel good and eager to be here, and
of course
help the entire town achieve some of the objectives that it wants over the next number of years.
Of course, I know we are in a place here at the town where there's a lot of growth and a lot of exciting things happening. And I know you just jumped on board, so you're still learning.
Yeah.
But what about that excites you, that there is so much going on within our town that it's actually for the good?
Yeah. So, well, you're right, Chris, and a lot of people view the growth that's taking place across the entire state. They see it as a bad thing. It's a negative. Well, bad or not, it's here, and more is coming. So you either get engaged with it and manage that growth and shape what it's going to look like in the future in the way that you want to, or it's going to run over you. So that's why I think it's important that councils have a vision, a long-term vision. Look, if anybody's been to the city of Greenville, they'll understand what I'm getting ready to talk about. Again, a story, an anecdote.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
When I lived in the upstate, I went to work at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Greenville. That hotel bought 2 15-passenger vans and hired 3 van drivers to drive those vans. I was one of those first 3. This was in 1989, I think, something like that. And so there were 2 reasons. One was to bring Eastern Airlines air crews back and forth from the hotel and the airport. You don't remember, you're much too young to remember Eastern Airlines, but some of our listeners will remember Eastern Airlines. And the other reason was to drive people from downtown Greenville out to Haywood Road to eat and shop and have entertainment, because there was nothing to do in downtown Greenville. On 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon back in those days, you could shoot a gun off down the middle of Main Street and not hit a soul.
That's crazy to think about.
But this is the point of the story. Those councils in Greenville had a vision that they started in the early 80s with Max Heller, who was the mayor at the time. They set that vision, and then they started executing that. And subsequent councils continued to execute that vision and that policy, so that when I moved away in 1989 or 1990 and came back in 2003 back to South Carolina, back to the Greenville area, I didn't recognize the place. It was amazing.
That's incredible.
How much development had taken place and how much downtown Greenville had grown and matured and become a destination. Even since then, 20 years now, again, it's changed tenfold even since then into what you see now. But that didn't happen. That only happened because those councils over those decades had a vision and executed that vision in a consistent way and said, this is where we want to go. We want to be here in 10 years. We want to be here 15 years, 20 years. This is our vision. Without that consistent leadership and that sticking to that plan, then Greenville wouldn't be what it is today. Same kind of revelations taking place in downtown Spartanburg as well, downtown Anderson, and I say I'm naming these places just because those are the areas that I know best as the before and now the after. Summerville, I think, is on the cusp of doing something similar in terms of a long-range vision, and it has the luxury now to know, hey, a lot of the growth that we want to attract, we really don't have to attract it. It's coming. It's going to be. It's here.
It's natural,
and more is coming. So that I think that hard work we won't necessarily have to deal with. We won't have to do it. But managing what's coming is going to be extremely important to make sure that it's the right kind of growth, and that it fits the community that we want to be, not in 5 years, but in 25 years. We have to look long term.
Yeah, I agree. And I know and mayor and council have definitely spoke about this as their vision plan and something that they're working towards, especially with other entities here in town and working together as a group.
Well, you make a good point, Chris. The city of Greenville didn't accomplish that by itself. They had to work with their county government. They had to work with their water, their CPW. They essentially got a CPW there. Lots of other different governmental entities and other stakeholders and partners, the private sector, businesses, the chambers. All of these folks had to collaborate in order to see what you see today, and it's replicable. We can do that here as well.
Absolutely, and I think there's going to be a lot of excitement when it comes to the vision plan, especially when we get to later in this year and then into next year. I think the community is going to start seeing a lot more about that. Now, just to kind of bring this thing home a little bit, I do want to talk about, have you explored any of the restaurants here in town yet?
I have. I've had the occasion to eat lunch here in town a couple times. I've eaten out I'm pretty frugal, too, Chris. So I try to only go out for lunch maybe once a week or to dinner.
You're better than me. I'm not gonna lie. Just saying.
So, but I'm excited about learning more about the community. I just heard about Godwin's beer hall. You guys told me about that last night. So
brand new to the town.
I'm a beer snob. I'm a coffee snob. So as it happens, as I understand, Godwin's and what's the coffee shop? Coastal Coffee are right next door to one another, or in the same building.
We're getting him used to the Summerville way, knowing that Coastal's the community hub, right? But no, we have a lot of great restaurants here. I think you'll find that really quickly.
I tell you what, listen, our downtown is the crown jewel of the town. Obviously, I'm not telling you anything, or anybody else who's listening or watching. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. What Summerville has in its downtown is enviable for a lot of cities and towns across the state. So we should be proud of what we have. We should certainly, as we're doing, try to keep it and keep it intact while we're growing and accommodating new businesses, and maybe even doing infill projects that fit in the right way. So I'm excited about it. The community events that are taking place here all the time helps draw people into town, keeps people in town. The farmers market, the sweet tea festival is coming up. It's going to be really. I'm really looking forward to getting
just waiting until the Flower Town. Flower Town's our big one.
Cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, but it brings a lot of people to our community as well, which is really exciting because our goal is to serve our citizens in our community, but also show people how amazing Summerville is. I know. Listen, I'm the social media guy, right? I see y'all's comments. All right, we don't want people moving to Summerville. We have enough. I get it.
We're full,
but it's okay to kind of show off what we got here too.
Listen, I get it. There's a reason people want to be here. It's because of what we've created, what you've created here. So show it off, welcome new people. They bring new opportunities for us all. And again, as I said, if we manage it in the right way, and we can preserve what we have and find the future as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think I would love to continue to keep bringing you on and update the community in different forms and ways.
Absolutely.
And especially because we like to keep the mayor coming on and some of our council members. So being able to bring the town administrator on is something that really excites me. I think our community is going to really be excited about that as well. So
as you can tell, Chris, I don't like to talk. So
okay. He did a podcast with the Municipal Association, which is actually really good. You should check it out. They have a really great podcast as well. But yeah, Scott, thank you so much for meeting today. Do you have anything else that you would like to share as we go our separate ways?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to getting to know more and more people across town and having a great time here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to pick your brain and work with you as we continue to try to enhance our public information when it comes to our podcast and everything else, but also the other entities and departments within the town. I'm excited to see how you take it on. And
we've already talked about a couple things that we can do to make some small improvements.
Small improvement, this isn't it. I think there's going to be some more, so just stay tuned. But thank you guys so much for listening in. We'll make sure we have everything we talked about in the bio, and then also I hope you guys enjoyed the new setup. As always, if you have any questions, recommendations, or you're interested in being a guest on Town Talk, please feel free to fill out the form in the bio. We are happy to have those conversations with you. But thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Until next time, thank you.